Are indeed.
Thank you. Members, welcome to today's meeting. So, Mr. White, would you like to give any apologies, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have apologies to this afternoon's meeting from Councillors Ball, Coulson, Ratcliffe and Salis. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll remember this time to put the microphone on as well. Members, do we have any declarations of interest on the agenda? I see none, Mr. White. In that case, can we move on to item 3, please? Confirmation of the minutes from the 30th of November. Oh, my apologies. Oh. My apologies. Let's back up, Mr. Welch. I was getting carried away there.
I need a lot of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, good to be with you. At the beginning of these sessions, I did offer my services as a mediator and
Thank you. Actually, the various pings that I heard just now, can I remind all members to please mute their laptops so that we don't get the chorus of pings as we go through. So if we can carry on then with item 3, confirmation of minutes. Is everybody happy with those from the 30th of November? Thank you. Item 4, communications from the Mayor. I've just got a couple of things to ask members if they're interested. We have a pub quiz in the White Hart in Bridgestone on the 9th of March. It would be nice to see a team of 2 coming from West Devon show how intelligent or not we really are. And also a reminder for those who haven't replied yet for the dinner on the 18th of March, and my thanks to those that have already replied. I have no items under item 5 to bring forward, and to my best knowledge, we have no public questions or questions on notice from the public or from members. Item number 8, we have 1 motion on notice received from Councillor Ratcliffe, and I understand Councillor Jury is bringing that forward on his behalf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members, house prices in our borough are the least affordable in Devon, with the average house costing more than 12 times the average salary. There is an almost complete absence of long-term rented accommodation and an ever-increasing pressure on housing stock that is available due to relocation trends from urban areas into more rural locations. West Devon Borough Council continues to deliver what is required through the joint local plan by exceeding its housing delivery targets. But this alone will not tackle the problem or deliver the types of houses local people need, where they need them, at a price they can afford. I therefore bring before the Council a motion to elevate the Council's response to this crisis, to go further and to do more collectively, strategically and financially. In proposing this motion to declare a housing crisis, I'm asking for the commitment of all members of this Council to step up to meet this challenge. This issue should be foremost in members' minds when engaging with our communities, debating, challenging, setting strategy and exercising your democratic decision-making powers. Members, the motion is that West Devon Borough Council should recognise current difficulties in the housing market and the effect on the affordability of good quality housing within the borough. And firstly, demonstrate our commitment to the well-being of homeless people in the borough by providing quality temporary accommodation, such as that proposed at Spring Hill in Tavistock, and reduce the need for less appropriate forms of temporary accommodation. Secondly, to act where the council has a land holding and take an interventionist approach to the housing market over the longer term, where there is demonstrable housing need, leading to improved long-term housing outcomes. 3, to recognise the market failures locally around accommodation options for vulnerable people, in particular exempt accommodation, and work in close partnership with Devon County Council to provide alternatives, putting people before profit. At the same time, lobby national government to make legislative changes to remove the incentives for unscrupulous providers and to protect the needs of this vulnerable group. Item 4, to recognise the need for extra care accommodation in the borough, such as that proposed at Plymouth Road, and to ensure that such schemes are supported to come forward. 5, to actively contribute to Team Devon's Housing Task Force and Housing Commission to build the case for affordable housing as a key priority in any pan-Devon devolution ask. 6, to lobby government through our MPs and the LGA to review the regulation of holiday accommodation, to ensure all holiday accommodation is suitably regulated and made subject to local planning policies and taxes. We should also appeal for an extension to the 90-day short-term let legislation to be extended outside London and lobby DLUC for a separate planning class for short-term lets and a proper licensing system to cater for them. 7, as the Council moves towards a review of the joint local plan, aspire to the highest affordable housing threshold that is sustainable and underpin it in policy. 8, to create a long-term strategic partnership with a high-quality registered provider to see the delivery of affordable-led housing at scale and over the long term in the borough. 9, to continue to work closely with our main registered providers to ensure best occupancy of stock, not just by providing financial incentives for downsizing, but where a step into home ownership may be possible, supporting tenants to make that move through a deposit grant scheme. 10, use any Section 106 affordable housing contributions as soon as possible to help fund developments anywhere in the borough where the terms of the Section 106 agreement permit this. 11, as agreed at the last Hub Committee meeting, campaign for changes to the broad market area to better reflect the cost of rents in West Devon. 12, to actively seek opportunities to invest in council-owned social housing with high sustainable specification, including modular housing, to support those on low incomes who are unable to afford affordable rented housing. And 13, aligned with our climate change emergency, continue to fund and bid for further national funding improvements to existing private sector houses within the borough, recognising that housing is responsible for 40% of national CO2 emissions. Members, I commend this motion to you and be happy to take any questions.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As I'm sure with all of us, we're all quite concerned about the situation in West Devon and certainly within our own wards concerning the lack of housing and certainly the affordability of housing. So generally, I'm in favour of this, but I do have a sort of a question, really. Well, I do have a question. I just wondered if we had the background information because it starts off by a background that it talks about house prices in the borough are the least affordable in Devon. Then it goes on to talk about long-term rented accommodation. And there's lots of things about there's assumptions about information that we know. I thought, actually, it's probably my accountancy background. Do we know? I mean, are we, you know, are some of these figures actually, do we have evidence to back it up? I know generally we think that this is the position. There is a housing shortage nationally, certainly within West Devon. There's certainly a lack of long-term accommodation, but do we, I don't know if Mr. Councillor Ratcliffe actually had any information to back it up. I know he's not here, but I just wondered if there's anything to support this. Thank you.
Councillor Jury, would you like to respond to that?
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yes, so as far as I'm aware, there is at least anecdotal evidence for much of what I said, and certainly the housing team is in support of the motion and has information and anecdotal evidence to back up what has been said. It's clear, I think, to all of us from talking to people within our own wards that there is a real and genuine need for young people and families in particular to get on the housing ladder. And I think the plain fact is that not enough, quote, affordable, unquote, housing is being built in the right places for the right people. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Davies? Councillor Moody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just would like to say, is it right and proper that we are debating this in the absence of the councillor who can't be here today and whose name appears on the motion? I have a number of questions I wish to ask him personally, and I don't think that anybody else can speak on his behalf. So my preference would be to defer this motion to the next full council meeting when the councillor is available to answer the questions personally, as a point of order.
I think, Councillor Moody, that if we were not able to debate and have this discussion with the councillor putting the motion forward absent, then it wouldn't be remaining on the agenda. Councillor Joy is happy to bring forward the information on his behalf, and Councillor Ratcliffe was happy for him to do so.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It doesn't answer the question that Councillor Ratcliffe will not be answering the questions himself. And as he is the author of the motion, I think it's only right and proper that we ask him so he can stand up in our council and answer those questions. There are a number of issues that I have concerns with. There are a number of issues of misinformation in the amendment, which I would like to address, and I'd like Councillor Radcliffe to answer those questions.
Can I just be clear, because you said that there are a number of questions in the amendment. We have no amendment put forward at the moment, Councillor.
I didn't say amendment. I said in the motion there are some issues that need addressing, around which there are no facts or evidence.
Are you wishing to move then that we defer this, Councillor Moody?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I think, given the circumstances of Councillor Ratcliffe's absence, I think I would move to defer the motion until the next available council meeting, so that we can ask Councillor Ratcliffe personally questions that we may pose.
Before I ask for a seconder for that, Mr. Fairbairn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council Procedure Rule 15 9 says a motion shall only be moved by the member by whom notice has been given, or by a member authorised by such member. My understanding is that Councillor Jory has been authorised by Councillor Ratcliffe to move the motion. So it's perfectly appropriate for members to discuss it today, unless, of course, your proposal to defer is agreed.
Does Councillor Moody have a seconder?
Mr. Mayor, I'm quite happy to second, just on the basis I'm quite interested to know what the questions are. So. I can't imagine being supported, but I'm happy to second.
In that case, members, do we have any debate around this, or can we just go straight to the vote? Councillor Ewing.
My apologies.
That's all right, don't worry about it. Oh, sorry. They're the ones who aren't here yet. Well, Claire's now not got. Claire's Nikki, so we're doing really well here. The only query I would have is this motion has not actually gone through the Housing Advisory Group. And it's, you know, it's a big issue. And should it have gone through, when we've had other items brought forward, sometimes lead members or whatever have been criticised or told to take it forward to the advisory group that is appropriate. And I was at the last Housing Advisory Group a few weeks ago, which would have given it time to come back to this meeting on the report, and it was not discussed.
I think that seems to be a common theme with the advisory groups and discussions currently. Councillor Jury.
If I can respond, I think that the purpose of advisory groups is to hold lead members to account and check that progress is being made against the designated plan, and also to forward scan and look at new policy areas and suggest new debates that should take place over formulating future policy. I think that this current emergency, as it exists, is urgent. I think we should recognise it now. The motion in front of us recognises that and sets out our ambitions to move things forward and work on policy areas. There's no quick fix to this. We need to crack on and get developing policy that will help the situation and respond to the needs of our residents. I don't see that we should delay matters either by deferring this issue or by waiting until such time as we can discuss it further within the housing group. It's a matter for all the members of the council. It's urgent, it's wide-ranging, and my purpose in putting it forward is to get agreement of the whole council in short time to recognise the situation and set out our ambitions to actually move forward and do something purposeful for the benefit of our residents. So I'm afraid that would be my position.
Thank you, Councillor Jury. Councillor Renders. At the moment we're in general debate, we will then take a vote on whether it's going to be deferred or not. I just wanted to give you the opportunity to ask your question.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I'm pleased that this is finally coming. I've been banging this drum for quite some while now, so it's nice. A bit later than never. I just have one question really that worries me. I can't get up on my screen in front of me, but we allude to the fact that we would find a preferred partner, and that does make me a little bit nervous. So we're just picking one particular person to go forward with, and if so, have we already got that in place, or is it preferred partner depending on what we're going to do? Because it does. If I was the public and we were suddenly saying we're going to go forward just as one particular, to me, I don't think it's as open as it should be. I like to think that for each thing we might have one or two people putting their hat in the ring for certain proposals. Does that make sense?
Thank you, Councillor.
Have we already got somebody in mind, and why are we only going to go with one particular preferred partner when we already have several in the pipeline or in the, that we do with it currently?
Thank you for your question. Before we go and answer that one, no, Councillor Jury, I've been advised that we need to take the vote on the deferral before we go further. So is this to do with the deferral, Councillor Edmonds, Councillor Cheadle?
It is. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Jury has said much of what I was going to say, but I think it's worth reminding ourselves of why this motion is in front of us. It's about a housing crisis, and let's stop and think for a moment what that probably represents for many of our residents. where the leader used was urgency. Surely it's incumbent upon us as councillors, as the council, to declare an emergency and perhaps more importantly, to start taking the actions that will mitigate, relieve some of the huge pressures that people are under as a result of the housing crisis. That to me is what it's about. I'm very confident that looking at those assembled in this room, that we have got the ability to answer any questions that may come forward to the satisfaction, or certainly to my satisfaction. And if that's the case, I see no reason for deferring this because, as I say, surely the responsibility lies with us as community leaders to look after our residents' best interest, and let's get on with this and start taking some much needed action.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Edmonds. Councillor Cheadle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I understand the genesis behind this motion. We have house prices spiralling upwards and people's ability to afford them moving in the opposite direction. Furthermore, I understand South Hams Council have passed a similar motion. And if we do the same, this will enable us to apply more horsepower to move things forward in a combined way. However, I am concerned that it's not been discussed by the advisory group on housing, nor has it been the subject of a wider discussion between councillors, and therefore it may be missing valuable pieces of the jigsaw. There's no mention of us challenging affordable housing quotients, even affordable housing definitions, empty houses, second homes, and I could go on. I would therefore propose an amendment that a paper should be brought back to the council once these steps have been taken. I'm not suggesting we defer the motion, I'm suggesting we support the motion, but in addition, agree that a paper will be brought back to the council once these steps, once the advisory housing group have had a chance to consider them, and once a wider council discussion has been held to make sure we capture the entirety of the argument and a comprehensive plan can be agreed. So I'm suggesting that we support the motion, but also support a paper coming back to the council, a proper paper with all the arguments about numbers being challenged and due diligence having been applied, so that we know precisely where we stand and what action we can take. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Wright, I hope you're on top of this, because I think then...
If you want to go on,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, we're currently debating the proposal for deferral, which has been seconded, and then any further amendments subsequent to that will be dictated by the vote on the deferral.
Okay. Councillor Renders, are you wanting an answer to your question before we move to the vote on the motion to defer?
I'm happy to wait.
Councillor, for your patience. In that case, members, can we take the vote then on whether we defer this motion to a later meeting or not? Those in support of deferral, please raise your hands.
That's 6 votes for deferral. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And those against?
With 20 against. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. White. In that case, we will return to the debate. And Councillor Joy, could you answer Councillor Render's question then, please, before we move on to any amendments? I'll come back to you, Councillor Moody.
I think so. Could you remind me of your question, Councillor Render, just so that I get it right?
Of course, Councillor. My question was regards to preferred partner. You know, and it makes me a little bit uneasy that that's in there. I would like it to be more open than that, than particularly picking on 1%, because we've got providers at the moment. The fact that we're throwing our hat in potentially, but if I'm reading this correctly, with one particular group or company makes me a little uneasy on that. I think it doesn't look good on the council, but that's my personal opinion.
Thank you. Yes, I can answer that. I reiterate that the motion that's in front of us is a recognition of an emergency, and it is about providing an ambition for the way forward. It is not about developing policy here on the hoof. the policy will follow in the very papers that Councillor Gill, I think, is talking about that will come later, and will develop the idea and perhaps come up with different ideas. With regards to the particular quote about a preferred provider, I can confirm that there is no particular organisation in mind. We have not yet got to the point of fixing policy. I think it's an idea that has yet to be developed, where we may well be looking at trying to develop affordable housing at scale. And I don't think I can say more than that at this point. But it would certainly be something that we would be open to talking to a number of different providers and perhaps coming up with the preferred provider or providers if there's enough scope to do that. So I don't see this as limiting us at any stage at the moment. And there is certainly nobody in the frame that this is designed to leverage into a position of advantage. So hopefully that will answer the question.
Okay. Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Anderson?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Moody?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask the leader, so if I understand him, what he has just said is that this is a wish list and there's no meat on the bones, as it were. These are the bones, these are the directions we'd like to go to, but nothing has been given to us as members to make a decision on the proposal. Is that correct?
I think that's right, broadly, Councillor Moody. It sets out our ambitions and is meant to provide a way forward, if you like, a direction of travel, and to inject some urgency into other issues that members and lead members and advisory groups may wish to consider. I think certainly the main emphasis for that will fall on the Housing Advisory Group, but there will be other areas that may well want to make their contribution towards things we do that solve this crisis and emergency as well. So there is nothing here that is setting policy for the future. It's all about recognising the position and throwing some and making the commitment that we will throw our weight as a council behind resolving this issue as a matter of urgency.
Thank you very much, Leader. That's very helpful. One question I do have, which causes me concern, is the one statement regarding the extra care. Under number 4, it says, we recognise the need for extra care accommodation in the borough. The leader will be aware that under the inspection of the joint local plan, draft joint local plan, an area of land at Hazeldean at Kelly College was going to be allocated. Devon County Council decided that, or came forward and said there was insufficient evidence for that proposal to be included in the JLP, and it was withdrawn on the advice of DCC by the West Devon Borough Council officers. Is there new evidence for extra care in West Devon and in particular in Tavistock?
Thank you, Councillor. I wonder whether I could ask Mrs. Blake, because Mrs. Blake, in charge of the housing team, has been involved in looking at this situation, and I think is aware of the needs that there may be.
Yes, thank you for the question. Thanks, Councillor Jury. We we've had new advice, so we can make that available to members as part of the work that we can do that. We have got evidence, yes.
I can just say it would have been helpful if we'd had that information with this site.
I think it's already been explained, Councillor Moody, that that information will be coming forward as part of the reports and part of the debate that will follow from this. I'm very conscious as well that we have yet to have a seconder for this motion. Can we have a seconder for Councillor Jury, please? Thank you, Councillor Yangs.
I'm happy to second this motion from Councillor Cheadle. I would like to point out.
Sorry, the request was for a seconder to Councillor Jury before we move into any amendments.
Happy to second to move it along.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Members, we are therefore in debate, so we can now take any amendments. Is that correct, Mr. White?
That's correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we currently have a proposal from Councillor Cheadle. However, Councillor Pearce, you would like to propose an amendment as well, I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I would. My amendment is worded as follows: that this authority lobbies our MPs and central government to provide an incentive to landowners for the provision of land specifically for local needs affordable housing. Giving landowners a tax break when providing land for affordable housing where there is an identified need would, it is believed, help to release land at a reduced cost to support the small-scale provision of affordable housing in our rural communities. As members and officers will be aware, the cost of land for housing is a significant deterrent to bringing forward low-cost quality housing in most of the borough area without the provision of open market housing, which most communities do not want. That is my amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Mr. White, I think with Councillor Ewins, we have a seconder for Councillor Cheadle's amendment. Do we need to take that one first, or can we have both on the table?
We can't have both on the table.
I wanted to check.
I wasn't sure if Councillor Cheadle actually definitively put his amendment, so I'd recommend, Mr. Mayor, that we deal with, if Councillor Pearce got a seconder, we'll deal with Councillor Pearce's amendment first, and then any subsequent ones, including potentially Councillor Cheadle's. But of course, we have the other option whereby before Councillor Pearce gets a seconder, if Councillor Jury and Councillor Ridges are willing to accept Councillor Pearce's amendment, that would in effect then fall within the substantive motion.
Are you happy for that amendment? For that? We had a seconder for your proposal, so do we have a seconder for Councillor Pearce's amendment?
Quite a few.
We have a forest springing up. Thank you, Mr. White.
Madam Mayor, I'm prepared to accept Councillor Pearce's amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ridges. Yes.
Therefore, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest looking at the motion as per the order paper, we would therefore have a new point 14, which is Councillor Pearce's amendment, which has been accepted as part of the substantive motion. So that is our substantive motion with the addition as per Councillor Pearce's address. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can now debate that, members. I hope you're all keeping up. Councillor Pettigrew, you're poised, I can see.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question for the leader, but I really don't know whether it should be now or 10 minutes ago, so I apologise. I'm just going to throw it out there. It's regarding point 4 and the comments about extra care. And my question is, as I entirely support the principle of the motion and the fact that it's the bones on which things will be added to, on that basis, and on the basis that the Plymouth Road Extra Care Facility hasn't had its 106 terms agreed yet, is it necessary to have the word Plymouth Road in there, or is it reasonable to ask them to be removed?
Thank you. It's given as an example of the sort of facility that we would be looking at. And as you say, I understand the section 106 terms are being negotiated as we speak. So I would quite like to see it left in there.
Councillor.
So, because I'm happy to support the motion, but I don't also want to nail my colours to something I haven't entirely agreed with on the basis I haven't seen the 106 terms yet, so I'm a bit stuck as to where I stand.
Okay. Anybody else want to add to the debate? Councillor Ewings.
Madam Mayor, am I allowed to continue with what I was trying to say earlier? Because you're in debate now.
If it's relevant to the motion that's before us as it stands, we don't have Councillor Cheadle's amendment at this moment.
Right. I'm so confused.
Keep peddling, Councillor Ewins. Councillor Drury.
Madam Mayor, I think this is a really important motion, which is why I brought it forward. On reflection, if it means the motion has more support and can achieve the support of Tavistock members in particular, I'd be happy to remove the words in brackets, such as proposed at Plymouth Road, from the motion.
Councillor Pettigrew, does that make you more comfortable with the proposition?
Much more, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you.
I'll accept that as well.
Thank you, Councillor Richards. Members, anyone else? Councillor Cheadle, in that case, would you, before we go to the vote, would you like to add your amendment or?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I was just going to suggest that as step 15 of this proposal, we add that a properly crafted paper is returned to the council for endorsement once the arguments around these proposals and others, as agreed to by the advisory housing group and with the participation of all the councillors, has been had. So basically, I'm suggesting that these ideas go through that advisory group on housing. There is an informal council for us all to discuss other ideas that are not yet in this proposal. And once they have all been collated, a paper is brought back to the council for endorsement. I'm sure we can simplify that down into a sentence.
Now's your chance, Councillor Ewins. Are you ready?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief Exec. I brought up this issue to the leader and officers after, I think, the October or November overview and scrutiny meeting, that something needed to be done. The members in that ONS meeting were concerned about affordable housing and housing needs in general for West Devon. I was led to believe, and I think most members were, there was going to be an informal council meeting that solely discussed housing in West Devon. That meeting hasn't taken place. As we can see from the way people are bobbing up and down, that this needs more clarity. It's an awfully long motion that we don't normally have. It hasn't been through the Housing Advisory Group. And had I have realised Councillor Jury's intentions for what has come today before us, I could have said something earlier, which I did months ago. So it did have time to have an informal meeting. It did have time to go through Housing Advisory. This is all well and good, but actually, as has already been stated today, there is no meat on the bones. And to quote a very old councillor who used to be here, it's a dog's breakfast. And I just feel that we need to tidy it up and actually state what this council wants. As Councillor Edmonds has rightly said, we all support the fact that there are housing issues in West Devon that are having a profound effect on people's lives. There are people who are homeless, sofa surfing, etc. So we do need to do something, but we need to be more precise in what we want to do instead of having a long list of we recognise, we might, and things like that. It needs tidying up. And every member in this room has got a view, and every member should have been given the opportunity to feed into this motion with a report coming with this to state exactly what we want. And I feel that the members actually have been let down, that we haven't been given this opportunity. And we all represent our areas, whether we're villages, towns, etc. We all know of some of the poverty, the housing issues, and I don't feel that this recognises that. I think we should have done it in a far better way, and I'll leave it at that.
I think then, just also to be clear, Councillor Ewins, because you are seconding a point 15 on the motion that is being put forward. However, your your comments would suggest that you do not support that full list.
No, I will support it because it needs supporting. What I'm saying is we've come about it all the wrong way, which actually seems to be a bit typical for this council at the moment.
Thank you for that clarity, Councillor Ewan.
Votes.
Councillor Edmonds.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just seek your permission that I am able to speak again because I've already spoken once before. I agree with pretty much everything Councillor Ewan has said, and I like Councillor Cheadle's proposal of a detailed report. That makes good sense, and I would have thought that would have been ticked the box for Councillor Ewan and provided much of the detail that she seeks. But I say again, it's the urgency here I think is important. This document, whether you like the wording or the number of words, is immaterial. What it does, it declares a housing crisis, which is the starting point for this council to start taking meaningful action, as indicated in the report by Councillor Cheadle. I guess if I were about to lose my accommodation, if I was in the travel lodge at Saltash and I was listening in to this debate, I doubt I'd be particularly impressed by all the delay and, discussion around the process. Surely the key thing here is to agree what's in front of us. We have an emergency and we accept that, and then let's get our heads down and start putting together something that will change things, make a difference to those people in that unfortunate position. That's what I come back to. And for me, that's what this is about. I'm just keen to get this accepted. We start work in putting the report together, the actions fully discussed with members in agreement, general agreement. But let's do something. That's the key bit here, not waiting, deferments and the rest of it. I'm sure we all agree on that we need to do something and soon.
Thank you, Councillor Edmonds. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you, Councillor Edmonds. I think we have a responsibility as councillors in West Devon to put this foremost in our minds. And I think that, sorry, I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, so housing is the fundamental thing that shapes all of our communities. It's what shapes everything that we do. And if we haven't got housing, we can't house the people that we need to work and provide our economy and fill our schools and, all the rest of it. And we, what are we doing? So I think what I'm trying to say is that we do need to support a motion that there is a housing crisis because there are so many people that can't afford to live and to work in West Devon at the moment. I do very much agree with what Councillor Ewens was saying, though, about this motion. It needs a lot more clarity. It sort of reads as a wish list, doesn't it? And I think somebody said that earlier. It reads as a wish list. Maybe that's what it is, of things that we should be doing as a council. But I think we need to be reassured as members that this is now going to go through the housing advisory group. It's going to be, be part of all of the work that we do and have contributions from all of us as to how we can move this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Mayor. West Devon has actually delivered more houses than allocated in the JLP. So this seems to suggest that it's not led to an alleviation of the housing crisis, which is not new. It's just a worsening situation. And I suggest that what we need is a really deep and hard look at what we mean by affordability for our local residents and make sure that we provide that. Thank you. Not a question.
Thank you. If we're... Councillor Pearce, my apologies, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the reason for this motion is the fact that the housing crisis has accelerated tremendously in the last 6 to 9 months. We've all seen the prices of housing in all our areas, which is just getting ridiculous. And unfortunately, the situation is going to get worse, I feel. I would hate to see this delayed. I mean, the motion hopefully will be agreed and then we can get the meat on the bones, but it needs to be done really quickly. And some of the things that are listed in the motion are already being worked on. So I think, we are making progress. Whilst I can understand where Councillor Moody was coming from, I was horrified at the thought of this being delayed for another 2 months until the April council meeting. We really need to crack on with this and make sure that we are making progress, because there are a lot of people in serious trouble out there as far as housing is concerned. So I hope everyone will support the motion and the amendment. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Drew, before I come to you to summarise and finish up, Councillor Moody, is it a quick bit?
Yeah, I would like to say that I too support the issue of behind the motion. But my concern was that it was insufficient information for me. I support the amendment by Councillor Cheadle that we request a report to come back to full council so we know what the meat on the bone is. But I totally support the need for looking at the housing situation in Tavistock. And in West Devon, I should say.
Thank you, Councillor Moody. Councillor Joy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm afraid I don't agree with some of the comments that have been made. I think this motion is an attempt at providing some clarity and looking at the things that we can do or the things that we should be looking to do. And my hope and expectation was that it would do that. I'm not quite sure why people aren't viewing it in that light. I'm also a bit concerned, I have to be said, that if we pass an amendment that says that we must put all this into a report, that is further going to delay things, potentially by quite a considerable amount of time. There are some things in this list that, as Councillor Pearce has quite rightly said, we are doing at the moment. There are some things in the list that will be very easy for us to do tomorrow. There are other things, for example, looking at our land holdings and working out how we take an interventionist approach, that will take much longer to pull together. And I think the whole intention of this was that it would set an agenda which we would start working towards and bringing policy documents, perhaps even individual policy documents, back before Hub and Council through appropriate advisory groups if needed, and not wait another 2, 3, 4 months. How long do we want to wait to pull together a document that provides all the policy and all the figures? So I'm really in favour of us coming back and developing policy based around the fact that we passed this motion. But my own view is that it has to be a much more fluid and a much more flexible approach to make sure that we get maximum benefit and move with maximum speed where we can. So I would not be in favour of the amendment as it stands, Madam Mayor.
I think so. I think we've all done with that statement, Councillor Drury. Mr. White, would you like to just read through so that everybody's clear on what we are about to vote on?
I'll have a go, thanks for that. I think it's only fair as well, because a bit of artistic license, if Councillor Cheadle's happy to go with what I've put down. But anyway, here goes. So this will be a point 15, that having declared a housing crisis, the ideas as set out in points 1 to 14 of the substantive motion be given further consideration at 1, a meeting of the Homes Hub Advisory Group, 2, an informal council session, and 3, the next meeting of full council to be supplemented by a published report.
Thank you, Mr. White. Councillor Drury and Councillor Ridger, are you happy with that?
I think if we could get a wording that referred to reports as and when they were available, I would be prepared to go along with that.
Yes, could I just say, I have no intention whatsoever in delaying anything. The work behind all these can continue and should go ahead at pace. What I'm looking for is more clarity in precisely what we are going to do. And I don't see why there's any reason we can't produce a report that sets that out. We need an action plan, basically.
Councillor Drew, are you happy with that?
Well, yes, I am happy with that. I think it's all of our intentions that this should move on quickly with the requisite information for councillors so that councillors can fully contribute.
Councillor Ridges.
Would it make it very simpler just to, sorry, Councillor Cheadle, I don't put words in your mouth, but would it say reports to the various bullet points? And then you're not taking it all in block, you're actually being able to sort of report on different stages so we can move at pace with certain elements.
Yes, I think
provide clarity to the others.
Putting an S after report to reports, but I think what I'd trade in return was an action plan.
Councillor Joy.
I'd be happy with that, Madam Mayor.
I think we're there, members. So I'm going to let Councillor Cheadle, Councillor Ewins, Councillor Drury, Councillor Ridges, as you are the main proposers in this motion at the moment. Are you for? Yes, I'm having nods. In that case, members, let's take it to the vote before we lose the thread of this conversation.
Before we do, Mr. Mayor, it's probably helpful that we've obviously got 3 changes to the substantive motion which are on the order papers. So in the order that they are, we have now on bullet point 4, we're removing the brackets which read as follows, such as proposed at Plymouth Road. We then have a new bullet point 14, which is Councillor Pearce's amendment, and then then point 15, which is Councillor Cheadle's amendment. So there's 2 additions and a deletion of the brackets at point 4.
Thank you, Mr. White. Can I have then a show of hands for those in support of the motion?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. White. We got there. Goodness, you're testing me this afternoon. Councillor Leach.
I have a bit of a problem. I need to leave the chamber.
Carry on, Councillor Leach. Let's have something light then, shall we? Councillor Ewins, would you like to introduce the committee minutes for the overview and scrutiny meetings from November and January?
God, I nearly lost them with all the excitement. I move that the minutes of the meetings of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 16th of November 2021 and the 18th of January 2022 be received and noted. They are ONS 20 to ONS 32 and ONS 33 to ONS 43, with the exception of ONS 29 and ONS 38, and can be found between pages 7 and 12 and 13 and 18, respectively, of the agenda papers. May I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Councillor Spettigue.
In respect of ONS 29, I propose the following. That Council be recommended to adopt the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report for 2020-21. May I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, Councillor.
I'll take a second.
Is there any debate?
No debates. Councillor, are those in favour?
Well, it says it on my papers.
That's clearly carried for the recommendation. Thank you, members.
White. In respect of ONS 38, I propose the following. The Council be recommended to lobby, oh golly, sorry. Lost it. That Council be recommended to lobby and make representations calling for the ability for the Council to insist that where practicable and appropriate, all future developments in West Devon must be landscaped with indigenous plants. West Devon has declared both a climate change and biodiversity emergency, and such an ability would fit in with West Devon's ambition to increase safeguarding biodiversity. May I have a seconder, please?
Second that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Kimber.
There's that words there again. He's written it.
It's the must. I'm conscious of officer comments on the word must within that. Would you be happy to change that to should?
Yes. Yeah. We did say should in the meeting, I think, rather than must.
That's I was just checking on the clarity of that. It was, yeah. Thank you, Mr. White. If we can add that as a should rather than a must. Are you happy with that, councillor Yelland? Thank you. In that case, with that amendment to should, can we take that to the vote, please, Mr. White?
Thank you, members. All in favour, please. That's 25 in favour. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. White. And against, then?
None. None against. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davies, your turn to shine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not too sure I'm going to shine, but I'll do my best. I've got 2 points here, actually. The first is I move that the minutes of the meeting of the Audit Committee held on the 7th of December 2021 be received and noted, with the exception of recommendation AC 16. They are AC 15 to AC 22 and can be found between pages 19 and 21 of the agenda papers. Have a seconder, please.
Thank you, councillor Wanders.
I'll move on. In respect of recommendation AC 16, I propose the following. That council be recommended to opt in to the national arrangements for the procurement and appointment of external auditors through the public sector audit appointments by the 11th of March 2022. Have a seconder, please.
Thank you, councillor Wanders. Members, are you all happy with those? Those in support?
That's clearly carried for that recommendation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Drury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Always difficult to follow the shining Councillor Davies. I move that the minutes of the meetings of the Hub Committee held on 7th of December 2021 and the 1st of February 2022 be received and noted, with the exception of recommendations HC 49/21, Part 2, HC 50/21, Part 2, HC 52/21, Part 7, HC 60/21, HC 63/21, and HC 66/21. They are HC 44/21 to HC 54/21 and HC 55/21 to HC 66/21 and can be found between pages 23 and 28 and 29 and 34 of the agenda papers. Could I have a seconder, please?
Thank you, councillor Edmonds.
Happy to second that.
Members, apologies, councillor Drury.
In respect of recommendation HC 49/21, Part 2, I propose the following. That council be recommended to delegate authority to the head of paid service in consultation with the lead Hub Committee member for adapting our built environment and the Director of Strategic Finance to recruit additional staffing where there is clear and demonstrable increase in planning applications and or demand on the service, provided that the increase